Hi friends, welcome back to the Classy Mommy. I'm Brittany and I'm glad you're here. Okay, before we start today, I just want you to know it's end of the school year. I am really sick, so I just decided I wanted to do this video, coughing, scratchy throat and all, because it is that time of year where we are, well, I am not, but I know so many people are either interviewing, getting into the teaching profession, or moving between districts and applying for teaching jobs. So I didn't want to delay, excuse me, I didn't want to wait until I sounded perfect and was like 100% healthy before doing this. You'll just have to bear with me. I want to share with you my top 3 and a little bonus number 4 tips for interviewing for teacher jobs specifically. Now, a couple days ago, I put on my Facebook, I have a ton of friends who are teachers, administrators, just personal friends and friends I went to school with who've been teaching for a long time, and colleagues and coworkers, because I've been teaching now for 10 years. So I just have a really awesome group of people on my Facebook, just friends, excuse me, and I asked them to let me know any of their favorite education specific interview tips. So I kind of compiled them along with some of my observations and some of my personal tips. I haven't been very public with this about this with you guys, but I traveled for 4 years being a pageant manager and coach. So although that was not specific to being a teacher and in education, I have worked with thousands of girls doing interviews, coaching them, and also being a judge, thousands of girls being a judge. So I feel like I have had a ton of experience just seeing what people are naturally drawn to in an interview kind of situation. So first and number 1 most important tip for interviewing for a teaching job is to be authentic to who you are. And what I mean by that, sorry, I've got my notes right down here, you guys. I wrote down a ton of things I didn't want to forget. What I mean by that is be ready to share what makes you stand out as a teacher. Now, I got a ton of comments on my personal Facebook page about this because I heard some friends were saying, some people who are friends of mine who are in education saying, definitely be ready to kind of brag about yourself and your accomplishments. And I had some other friends who are also in education and said, we can look at your resume, we can see what your accomplishments are. Excuse me, but I think I kind of land in that if you have a teaching certification, no matter what state you're in, your state is saying that you've passed all the requirements, you've done your student teaching component, so you work well with children in the classroom. You probably have letters of recommendation of either your professors, if you're just getting out of college, your mentor teachers, if you've taught before, or their colleagues or principals, if you've been a teacher before. So if you're interviewing for that job and you have those letters of recommendation, your interviewing team has probably seen those and knows that you're most likely great with children. Also, if you have a certification, that means you pass all of the state and national requirements for being a master at your content area. So I really feel like you need to put those things forward that make you shine because otherwise you look like just every other candidate that's applying for the job that has the same credentialing as you. And to me, it doesn't matter if you have 10 years experience, which I do, 0 years of experience, or you're a veteran master teacher and you've been teaching for your whole career. I just think you need to let your interview panel know exactly what makes you stand out. If there's anything that's specifically important to the way that you like to teach, your pedagogy or the curriculum, excuse me, focus that you really stand out and shine in, I say let it, put it out there. For me personally, I'm a music teacher, and when I was interviewing a couple of years ago, I would, share that some different areas musically that I really shine. Not necessarily talking about me personally, although, I feel like I was always asked that question, like, what do you play? What's your background with music? And I'm happy to share that, but I think the focus is more on like, what do I bring to the table at this school? So I would share things like, I'm really strong in, I love doing student musicals. And then I'd also share things like, I'm really passionate about doing a student honor choir. Have you guys had anything like that in the past, or are you open to something like that? I think it just starts a really neat dialogue. So if you're looking at being a biology teacher in middle school, talk about those things that really make you shine, what your involvement has been in the past. Even if you've been a student teacher in the past, what is your involvement with that subject? I think that's one of the big things that makes a candidate stand out in really any interview situation, whether it's teaching or not teaching, is if you can really bring a lot of passion and personal enthusiasm for some component of what the job is. Excuse me. So be ready to speak to that. I also think it really really helps set you apart from all the other candidates that they're going to be seeing all day long, or maybe even for weeks on end. They need to know what makes you, the candidate, the teacher, stand out, and why would I want you to be on my team. Also, I think it really helps let an interview panel see where your strengths are in curriculum or program or whatever the context is that you're sharing that you really shine in. I think it lets them see how you're gonna meld with what team dynamics they already have going on. I really do think that helps from both ends to see if this is the right fit, because that's really important. So don't feel bad about bragging about yourself. Excuse me. Now, we don't need to know all of your accolades. There's a spot on the resume to put that. So put all those accolades on there. I'm not talking about you don't need to be ready with your, minute long salesy spiel about how great you are, but just be ready to speak about what's important to you academically. So if you love incorporating science lessons, or if you love incorporating English journals, writing like a writing journal into your curriculum, be ready to talk about those things, because I think that's really important for them to see what you bring to the table, and also for you to share and see if that's something that that school is open to, or if that fits with their educational philosophy. Really important. The second most important thing is to remember that the interview, it really is going both ways. I was told this by some professors in college, and it's really helped me as I've interviewed for teaching positions through the years. Like I said, this is my 10th year, and I've been at a number of different schools through the years, and I feel like it's so important to find the perfect blend of educational philosophies. I so appreciate and value how in the United States, teachers do have a level of some wiggle room of bringing in parts of curriculum that they feel are really important and that they're really strong in teaching. I've talked with other educators from other countries, and I know it's common in some other countries, to be given the curriculum for, let's say 4th grade. Here's the 4th grade curriculum. This is all you'll teach. This is exactly as you'll teach it. And every district and every school is very different. But since we do have a little bit more say in what curriculum we teach in some districts, and like I said, every district and school is very unique to themselves, I do think that it's very, very, very important to find out if your personal philosophy for education matches and aligns with the school's philosophy for education. I've been in schools where my philosophy in teaching and my teaching style very much was similar with those around me and with the administration. And I had such a better teaching experience when I was in those kind of situations. I've also experienced where maybe my approach to education is different than a majority of other teachers I work with. And it was not quite as comfortable or as easy to get my goals reached. And I would say it was a little bit isolating. So as I was interviewing for my most recent job, that was something that I really valued and really asked questions to find out what's the philosophy at this certain school. And ask those questions, because as your panel is interviewing you, they want to know if you're going to be a good fit for their school, but you also know you better than they do, and it's important for you to know what's their culture at their school, what's important to them, what do they focus on, what is not so important to them. So if you are really passionate about, let's say, writing, but this particular school is really focused on including STEM things, and that's something you're not very interested in. Of course, we do have to compromise and teach the curriculum that the standards tell us to teach, and I support that and I agree with that. But every school does have different slight little bends of how they do that and how they approach the standards, different things that they value and will spend more time and resources to support, and some things that they won't. And I think it's very, very important for you to identify in yourself what teaching philosophies are really important to you. So as a subpart to this number 2, do your research. You must put in your research. Since it is a two-way interview, and I would say, go into it very humbly. Of course, you don't want to come in and be in control and demanding and in charge. I think that could be a little off-putting, but just be prepared with the questions that you need to have answered, and feel free to ask them as you go through the interview. I know at the very end, it's very common for an interview panel to say, do you have any questions for us? Well, I almost often will say no, because I've been asking them the whole time. So feel free to, as the conversation and the questions are being asked to you, to kind of bring it in as a dialogue and have a conversation as you go, instead of just leaving questions till the end. And of course, if you have questions that haven't been answered, by all means, ask them as a follow-up at the end as well. But what I mean is go in with specific research for that school. Every school is different. Every community is different. Even within a district, schools can vary so much, just depending on the neighborhood they're in, and of course, even from town to town, even with a very similar region. Do your research on that school. If they have an active Facebook page or an Instagram page, go to it, see what's going on, what kind of activities are they doing or promoting that are really important to them. What kind of extracurriculars do they do that maybe you'd want to be involved with? What kind of grants or awards have they been getting that might go, be part of what your curriculum area is or your subject area? Just get to know demographics and details of that school. What is their cultural, makeup? What kind of cultures do we have at this school? Is it a very affluent school? Is it a very middle class school? Is it a school with a lot of high percentage of poverty? That does very much change educational philosophies and approaches from school to school. And of course, that's dictated by the staff and the administration as well. But do your research. Know what's going on in that school before you even step in the doors. And I have heard this backfire. Excuse me. I was talking with a colleague who said, someone had come in, to their school and just, kind of diagnosed them. I've been researching. I know this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And I have all these solutions, to fix it. And I think that could be a little bit off-putting because you don't know until you're there and you're there every day and you know the kids and you know the families and the stories and the colleagues and the people, you don't know. So I think, that can be a double-edged sword. I think do your research, go in being knowledgeable about the student population, the community, the history of the school, what's been happening currently. But I would say be very, very careful to go in and, know it all and have all the solutions. I think it would be, very appropriate and fine to, share some things that you'd love, to be considered and to some of the things that you would love to offer the school. If you have any ideas of how you can help in different areas that you've maybe researched and found a need or struggling. But think about it like a first date. If you went on a first date with someone and they told you all the things that were wrong with you and how they were going to fix you, probably wouldn't go very well, and you probably wouldn't want a second date. So just be very humble, but come in with the very best of you. And I think people can tell, they use their intuition and they can tell the intent behind. If someone, is a know-it-all and very rigid, it's very off-putting. But if someone comes in and they're very compassionate and knowledgeable and well-researched, I think that comes across very differently as well and can be very, attractive in a candidate. It shows a lot of intention and a lot of preparation. So an interview goes two ways. By no means dominate the interview. By that I mean like lead it, be in charge, act like you're the boss. That'd be very, I think, off-putting, but be very warm and receptive and prepared. I think that that goes a long way.